Hi, everybody. It's wonderful to see you all, and I hope that everyone is having a lovely day. Yes, I know this said that I was going to be going live at 6, but I actually normally do these lives at 5. So that's the time that I'm going to go live. There was a little mix-up today on the scheduling. So I apologize for that. Well, welcome. It's good to see you all. I think there's a couple of people that found me, so we're just going to go with it. Today's subject is getting emotionally naked, and this is the name of the 12-week coaching program I teach. It's called Emotionally Naked Dating. I want to share with you how I actually came up with that name. A girlfriend of mine who was also a coach, we went through coaching training together. She actually called me and she said, Lisa, I've been asked to do this talk, and it's going to be in front of a group of singles. They're all coming to a singles party, a gathering where they can meet. And this matchmaker asked me if I would do a little talk before they start socializing and mingling. And my girlfriend said, look, they don't want to hear me talk. They're there to have a good time and meet each other. And so she said, what am I going to talk about? And I said, well, I think you need to make this something a little bit salacious, right? Something that's going to get their attention, kind of like dropping a glass in the middle of a room and everybody turns to look. And she said, well, what do you think I should talk about? And I said, well, why don't you call it Naked Dating? I thought that would be a bit fun. And she did the talk, and she and I actually went on and we did a couple of workshops called Naked Dating. And then she went and decided not to pursue her coaching career. And the more I played with this idea of naked dating, the more I realized that this really is the key to it all. This is the key to everything, getting emotionally naked. And the reason I added the word emotionally in front of it, I actually loved the play on words, naked dating. But there was a television show called Dating Naked. And a lot of people, I started a Facebook group, and some people said to me that they couldn't be members of the Facebook group Naked Dating because it would come in their feed, or maybe somebody would see that they were a member of this naked dating group and that might not look good. So I added emotionally in front of the naked dating. And that was the original, that's how it came about. And that's why I put the emotionally in front, even though I thought it was implied in that play on words, naked dating, after the TV show. And the fact that people really would go dating naked, I thought maybe I should just clarify that this is emotionally naked dating. I'm so glad I landed on that theme. And it's funny because it really did come to me. It's not like I sat down and I thought, what am I going to call my business, my program? I think I'll call it Naked Dating. That sounds cool. It actually was something I gave birth to, and then I watched it grow, like a baby. I watched this thing grow. So when I originally created Naked Dating, or Emotionally Naked Dating, my deepest desire was to write a book. I really wanted to write a book. I don't know what that drive was, but I thought for something inside of me was compelling me to write this book. At the time, I wasn't necessarily a very good writer. I could write, and I wrote better than average, but there wasn't a through line, like a clear connection between my thoughts and what I was writing. It just wasn't flowing. But I spent many, many, many years, I have to admit. I went away, I rented cabins, I spent time trying to write this book. And it was a struggle for me. It was a real struggle. I even had writing partners who were terrific. They helped me so much, but I still couldn't get the book I really wanted. And the truth was, if I'm being honest, I was trying to write this thing because I wanted a book and I wanted to have something worthwhile. But I think that really what was happening was I was creating this theme. It was giving me the space and the time to really develop this idea of naked dating, which is so deeply personal to me. And over the years, and it was a long time, I wound up creating this course, what became my course. I took the book or the material that I had written, and I actually used it as the basis for my course. And I realized that one of the reasons I struggled so much to write the book to begin with was because I didn't create the concept and test it out, have a lot of women apply the techniques that I had developed. I was just trying to create this out of my head. It was a great idea, I've since found, but at the time, I didn't know if I didn't even know if it would work. It just sounded good to me. And I'm so glad that I never really wrote that book, and I wound up turning it into the course. And this course has become magical, something I could have never imagined in my life. What I was doing all along was I was pulling together all the threads, the things that had led me to my husband, Benjamin. And I was pulling together a lot of the different tools that I had gleaned along the way, and that I had found that I'm trying to think, I don't want to give away the course, but I had been doing a lot of interpersonal work when I left my first husband. And there were certain tools that I used in my own personal growth that I found very, very useful. And so what I did was I just threw away all the garbage, like all the extraneous stuff. And I took the very, very, very best and most useful tools that I found. And those are the only ones I use in my course. Like, I don't give my clients 50 million techniques and do this and try tapping and do Ho'oponopono, prayers and do that thing and do this thing. No, I don't do that. I took away all the stuff and I wove in just the very, very, very best of what I know I did to find my husband, Benjamin. And this course has been magical. So the name of the course is Emotionally Naked Dating. And for anybody who's worked with me or knows me, many of you have been tuning in to my Sunday Facebook Lives at 10 a.m. Mountain Time that I do with my husband, Benjamin. And I just love this man. Like, I am so, so, so in love with my husband that I created this Sunday Facebook Live just so I could sit for an hour with him on Sunday mornings and talk. And for him, he's not always so comfortable being in front of the camera. But the most beautiful thing is, on Sunday, we did our Facebook Live on rejection last Sunday. And when we were all finished, he said, "That was really good." And I said, "Babe, you don't just have to say that." And he said, "No, it was." He said, "I'm really enjoying spending these Sundays talking with you." Well, one of the most beautiful things is that my husband is my biggest supporter. He supports me, and he sees my potential. So when I met him, if I'm going to be transparent, we'll talk about being emotionally naked. When I met my husband, my career was not in a good place. So I was very fortunate in my life. I mean, I had my misfortune. Out of misfortune came fortune. But my mother and grandmother died. So I was kind of left on my own very young. And my mother and my grandmother died by the time I was 21. But the good thing was, even though they were gone, they left my brother and me some money. And it was a good thing because that money really helped me get by in my early life. I don't know what my life would have been like if I hadn't had this cushion, because my mother died so young. My grandmother died when I was 21, and I was not emotionally in a great place. I wasn't. I was kind of like a person who can't see, feeling their way along the walls or something of life, right? I was just like trying to find my way to the light. But I was not in a good place from about the first 34 years of my life. And this was a cushion for me. But when I met Benjamin, I had careers, but I'd never been successful. And Benjamin just saw who I was, and he's the one who said to me, I had an importing business at the time we met. And Benjamin said to me, you really should be a therapist or a life coach. And I said, why? This was just after knowing me for 3 months. And he said, because your real passion is personal transformation. That's what he said. And the one thing about my relationship with Benjamin is that I really trust him with every cell in my being, and I really listen to what he says to me. So if Benjamin says something, I really do try to hear it and take it in. And I believed that he was seeing something in me that was really there. So I finished up I was getting my degree in spiritual psychology at the time. And I sold my importing company to an ex-boyfriend. And I enrolled in coaching training right after I graduated. I think even before I graduated, I did my first coaching course. And I became a coach. And I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that I would not be doing what I'm doing today if it wasn't for my husband. I would never have had the courage. I would have never believed in myself enough because I didn't get that from my parents. I didn't have anybody who really believed in me growing up. And so it's because of Benjamin that I did this, that I'm here. So I created anyway these podcasts on Sunday just so I can sit and talk to him for an hour because I think he's so amazing. But, the subject for today is getting emotionally naked. And I just love this idea. And what's so beautiful is that our relationship is a living example of what it's like to be completely emotionally naked in a relationship, like completely, not like in the beginning and then you start walking on eggshells or, you start feeling resentful and putting up walls. No, in our relationship, we have actually gotten more and more and more emotionally naked over time. And there really is nothing that we can't talk about. Nothing. There's nothing he would say to me or could say to me that I wouldn't be open to hearing. And we're just completely 100% ourselves with each other. And this is unconditional love. Emotional nakedness and the freedom to be completely emotionally naked in a relationship is the key to unconditional love, right? It's just the foundation for this. That, not taking things personally, right? Not taking anything personally, but one of the main pieces of being able to experience true unconditional love is being able to be emotionally naked with your partner, not just in the beginning. Like we've all had dates, right, where we've gone out with a guy and everything's flowing and it's magical, right? How many of you have been there, been on a date with a guy and you're like, oh my God, this is it. This is what it's supposed to feel like. And I think most of us have been there, in our lives where we've been in that flow and we've been connecting and we lose ourselves, right? We don't even have to think about what to say next. It just flows and it feels right. But then we lose it. We lose it. We get up in our heads. We start second guessing ourselves. We start questioning the guy. We become critical. Little by little, that just starts to fade. It starts to fade. And in a truly emotionally naked relationship, it grows. It just grows. It gets better and richer and deeper and safer over time. So how did I get there? And, let's go back to what is emotional nakedness. I'm sure a lot of you wonder, what does it mean to be emotionally naked? It means to be yourself, truly yourself. And when I say being yourself, that means that you may make mistakes. You may not like who you're being sometimes. You may say or do things that you regret later. But it's the willingness to show up authentically and really put yourself out there and see what gets reflected back to you. And not just what gets reflected back to you, but to learn not to reject yourself. If you make a mistake, right? If you say something that you later regret having said, if you behave in a way that you wish you had done differently, then it's the willingness to be able to authentically look at those behaviors and explore, what were you doing? Why did you do it? And to grow and learn from those things, but to be emotionally naked with yourself and not be afraid to put your authentic self out there and not be liked. One of the things about emotional nakedness that you really need to know is, as the more authentic you are, the less you're second guessing yourself or measuring the way you are with other people. The more authentic you truly are in every moment, and the more self-accepting you are, the more permission you have to be you, right? The more you're going to be able to just be yourself, because you're not going to beat up on yourself if you do something wrong or if you make a mistake. So it starts with getting emotionally naked with yourself, being authentic, showing up, putting yourself out there, and not being afraid to fail. So many of us are so afraid to fail. And then, what is that going to look like? What are other people going to think of me? I used to walk on eggshells through my life. I walked, it started with my mother, who was highly critical of me. And then that went on from there. And it went on from there, right? My mom was highly critical of me. And so I walked on eggshells my whole life. And I decided that I didn't want to do that anymore. I didn't want to walk on eggshells. I didn't want to keep holding back and second guessing myself and not being me, not giving myself permission to be me. And what I found was, the more I did this, the more emotionally naked and authentic I was with myself, the more self-expressed I was and the more attractive I became to other people, because people really enjoy authenticity, right? We love people who are just who they are without apology or shame. They're just showing up, and they give themselves permission to be real. And they really don't care what other people think. And I'm not talking about putting on a performance. I'm talking about true self-acceptance, deep, real self-acceptance, the kind that comes from taking a very real look at our shadow side, right? At the things we don't like about ourselves, and being willing to accept all of who you are. You see, if you do that, if you accept all of who you are, then other people can't hurt you because it won't matter what they think of you. It doesn't matter if somebody likes you or they don't like you, right? Like, you accept it and you move on. And you just want to hang out with the people that do like you. Because here's the thing, there are people that I don't want to hang out with. They may be perfectly fine for other people, but I have a right to make a decision about whose company I enjoy, right? Who I spend my time with. And there's lots of people that I don't want to hang out with. Just like there's lots of people who probably don't want to hang out with me. And that's okay. You know, there's lots of people who don't want to work with me as their coach. And that's fine. There's a billion other coaches, trust me. There are a ton of us these days. So, you know, you can go find the coach that you like that works for you. I just want to work with the people that like me. But all of this started with me getting emotionally naked with myself and being willing to accept who I am and to like that person, to like her. It's one thing to love yourself, but it's a whole other thing to even really just like who you are, to have a sense that, hey, I'm pretty cool, I am fun to hang out with. And I do, I don't just I haven't just learned to enjoy my company, but I take pleasure in my own company. I love being in my own mind, thinking and just seeing where my thoughts will go, So being able to have true emotional nakedness starts with being able to get emotionally naked with yourself, being willing to be courageous about putting yourself out there, and being willing to look at the things that you don't like about yourself, the things you're ashamed of. I was bullied and teased in 6th grade. My last name was Minkin, and kids called me Stinkin' Minkin, and I couldn't defend myself against any of that. I didn't have the self-esteem, and I was in 6th grade. And it was awful. I was, it wasn't that it was just bad enough to be treated that way by other kids, but I was embarrassed and humiliated and ashamed. And I didn't want to think that I grew up as this little, victim that got bullied and that people didn't like me. That was a source of shame for me for many, many years. And it was always there, it was like a cloud that hung over me, that the shame I felt. If I went on a date, was that guy going to see Lisa or was he going to see Stinkin' Minkin? True. And it felt like I wasn't good enough somehow. I had some kind of awful flaw, but there was no way I was going to ever let that get past that, get beyond that, and stop that from preventing me from connecting with men unless I looked at it. And so I did. And it was hard. I remember there was a night where some things had happened in my life that brought this to the surface, as life often does. And I was brokenhearted, because I was replaying some of those same feelings and thoughts and all. It was all brought to the surface again. And I cried. And Benjamin held me in his arms, and I cried so hard there weren't even words for what I was feeling. I was just crying all the tears for that little girl that I had never cried. I was feeling all the feelings that I had been afraid to feel. And I processed through it. But I let myself feel it, feel the sorrow, feel the shame. I stopped running away from it, and I just felt it. I felt how hard it was to be that little girl, to be rejected, to feel like an outcast. I think all of us feel this way at somewhere in our lives. Somewhere in our lives, all of us growing up, it didn't take a whole class to bully you, but there were probably people in everybody's life along the way that made them feel less than, that told them they couldn't be the things they dreamt of being. All of us have felt those feelings, and we've carried shame throughout our whole lives. And getting emotionally naked is facing that shame and accepting that part of you that felt that way and went through those things, and learning to love yourself anyway. Learning to love yourself because of it, because of what you came through. To have compassion for that part of you that went through that. So that's emotional nakedness. And then the beauty of that is that you then can do this with another person. If you can learn to love and accept yourself and accept all parts of yourself and have forgiveness and let go of the shame, you can do that with another person. But it all starts with you. We're all looking for somebody to come into our lives who's going to be that magical person who's going to make us feel alive and perfect and wonderful, so that we can just let our guard down and feel safe enough to do that. And maybe it happens that way for some other people. It didn't work that way for me. I had to take those walls down. They were so thick. I was so afraid based on everything I had been through in my life, right? If you go through an awful divorce, if you love someone deeply and then find out that he cheated on you, if you've been betrayed somehow, if you've been emotionally or physically abused by a partner, all of those things, that shame, that embarrassment that somebody treated us that way. How could that happen? How could somebody do that to us? My ex-husband was a pathological liar. I went through that. I stayed with him, even though there was a part of me that was screaming at me to get out of that relationship. I stayed for 13 years. And I had to take ownership of the fact that that was my choice. He lied. He needed to look at himself and figure out why he couldn't tell the truth. But I had to learn my lessons. He had to learn his own lessons. And that's the truth in life. Nobody can do this work for us. People can help us do the work. That's what therapy's for. That's what coaching's for, right? I help my clients do this work. I show them how to open up their hearts to men, how to get emotionally naked. My husband and I model for them what it sounds like to live in your heart and to ask for the things that you want and need from a partner in an inviting way, not demanding, not expecting, but to ask in an inviting way that opens a door to love and emotion, an emotionally naked relationship, to talk in a way that creates safety for your partner, right? And him for you. It has to be reciprocated. But to be able to do this in a safe and loving and sweet environment, it's really beautiful. And it's not what most people think. Our relationship is not this like, wow, oh my God, look at us. Although I think that there's a part of both of us that really feels that way. But this is very grounded. It's very real because we both did the work on ourselves to have it. It didn't just happen. So it takes a lot of, it takes work to really develop this level of mastery in relationships, to be able to get fully emotionally naked. to be able to safely open your heart, to speak your truth at any moment, to be able to ask for what you want and need. I never have to say to my husband, oh, that's wonderful, or I love that, if I don't feel that way. Never. And I never have to worry that I'm going to hurt his feelings if I tell him the truth. If he buys me a gift and it's not me, I would say, babe, thank you so much for getting this. And I just see all the thought that you put into it. And you know what? I don't think it's something I'll ever use. It's that simple. And my husband would go, oh, okay. Thank you for telling me. And that would be that, right? And we would like laugh about it. But we would know, he would know that I knew the thought that he had put into it and the sweetness, and he wouldn't take it personally. He would be happy that I told him the truth and that I didn't lie to him or just say, oh, I love it, and then it sits on a shelf, right? So yeah, that's the kind of relationship you can have when you really do this work on yourself, when you can get emotionally naked with you and really love all the parts of you, the ones that are wonderful and the ones that are not so wonderful. I've done things in my life and I look back and I think, Lisa, what were you thinking? Clearly you weren't, right? Or you wouldn't have done that. And I wonder, where was my head sometimes? Especially when it came to my relationships and my choice in men. Knowing what I know now, oh my goodness, I could have saved myself so much time and heartache, but I didn't know these things. I had to learn them, right? So having the courage to open up to yourself and look at your full self, to make mistakes. One of the things about the dating journey is that it will bring up anything, any self-judgment that you have, right? It's going to mirror back to you all of your shame and self-judgment, all of your doubt about your worthiness. Dating will reflect all of that back to you. And the goal is not that you're going to go out and find some perfect guy and all of that stuff is going to go away. The real goal in dating is to get emotionally naked with yourself and look at that self-doubt, face all of that shame, and allow the process to bring it up so that you can let go of this stuff. This is the key to self-acceptance and personal freedom. And take it from somebody who was living in emotional hell. I mean, it was like a prison in my mind. My mother, as I said a little earlier, was so critical of me that I couldn't even stand myself. I hated myself. And it took me years and years and years. I remember when I moved from, I think it was from Phoenix to Los Angeles, and I found all of my tapes from my therapy sessions. I don't know why a therapist would tape those sessions, but I thought, oh, I'm going to listen to one of, on the drive, I'll listen to some of these tapes. And it was excruciating. It was painful to listen to myself in those sessions because I could see how emotionally afraid I was to be myself. Even with my therapist, I knew as I was listening to the tapes, I knew what I wanted to say to her. And I was so careful with what I said and how I said it that I would be sitting there as I was listening to them going, Lisa, get to the point, just say what you want to say. And it would take me 15 minutes or 20 minutes just to ask a question or to really tell her something because I was so afraid of being judged. So afraid that I would put myself out there and somebody was going to judge me, they'd hurt me. And I had been hurt so much that I was scared to death that if I let people, see who I really was going to get judged. But I had to look at that stuff. We have to get through it. And so, having a great therapist gave me permission to be able to put this stuff out there, to have a witness, a person who could ask me the right questions and guide me to where I needed to go and help me learn how to accept myself. Nobody had ever even taught me that. I didn't even know what it sounded like in my whole life. In my young life, mostly people criticized me, but I got very, very little acceptance. And so, my therapist taught me how to accept myself and not be hard on myself. And that was all the genesis of me being able to open up and get emotionally naked. So again, it starts with getting emotionally naked with yourself, looking at the things you're afraid of. There's a great book called The Dark Side of the Light Chasers. It's by Debbie Ford. It's an older book, but it's a really, really good book about doing shadow work. So Carl Jung, talked a lot about our shadow side. We all just want to look at the good side, but you have to, and we want to push away the dark side. But you have to if you're going to become a whole person, you have to integrate the shadow and the light. You have to bring both of those sides together to be a truly whole person. You can't do it and you can't be there unless you're willing to do that. And so that's where great mentors and coaches and therapists come in, because those are the people who can actually show you how to do this. They can model it for you. If you get great coaches, you really want to look for people who already have the thing you're looking for. So if you want to have a phenomenal relationship, a loving, lasting, emotionally naked relationship, then you want to work with a coach or a mentor who has that, who has the kind of relationship you're seeking, because that's the person who can show you how to get that, right? Somebody else can lead you in a different direction, but you want to find the person who truly has the thing you're looking for. So you don't want to go to an overweight trainer, right? That wouldn't make sense. You want to work with somebody who's physically fit and who really has learned, maybe even somebody who struggled with, his or her body and overcame that, so that they can help guide you through that process successfully. That's what great coaches do. One of the unfortunate things is I know a lot of coaches out there who are so-called love coaches, but they're not in love. They're not in relationships themselves. They really haven't mastered this. They talk good. They have lots of tips and tricks and strategies. Maybe you might meet a great looking woman and she's a wonderful flirt and she can teach you how to flirt, but she can't teach you how to have a loving, lasting, emotionally naked relationship with a man because she's never had it. You can't teach someone how to do something that you yourself haven't done. So you got to find coaches who can do this with you. A coach who went through that process of learning how to open up and get emotionally naked with herself, who was afraid, right, for many years, and who opened up her heart and was able to do this in her own life and then turn around and create this with a man. Can you imagine having somebody there to just guide you through a process like that? Not only will you probably not figure this out on your own, but it would take you years of your life to do this. So working with someone like me, I've already done it. I've already carved out the path. Why would you even want to do it on your own if there's already a roadmap to get you there? Why would you want to sit and read books? How do I get emotionally naked? Although I do want you to read my book when it does come out. That was one of the things I was leading to, was to say that my husband and I are actually writing this book together, which is very exciting. So we are very, very excited to write this book. So yes, I want you to read my book when it does come out. I'm curious what all of you are thinking about what I'm saying. Have any of you ever really gotten emotionally naked with a man? Have any of you truly gotten emotionally naked, not cared about what he thought, said whatever came to your mind, been completely in the moment? On a date, Emily Ann says yes. What was that like for you? Is it something you still have? Were you able to sustain it, Emily Ann, or was it something that came and went? Was it something that you experienced but weren't able to get back to? I remember once my husband and I were in Amsterdam together. We were at this beautiful hotel that I found online. It was in Haarlem, just outside of the city. It was it was a huge mansion that they had turned into this incredible hotel. And he and I were there, and we were having this just magical experience. And we were so in love, and I was crying. I was laying in his arms, and it was just this perfect moment. And I said to him, I said, babe, do you think many people ever get here? Ever get here? And Benjamin said, I don't even know if we'll get back there again, because it was so perfect. It was this connection, this perfect experience of love and connection and just emotional nakedness. I think we were even lying naked in each other's arms. Really incredible to have this kind of love, but it's out there. Emily Ann says, I'm usually pretty emotionally naked and truly myself. Sometimes it's led to disaster, but recently it seems to be working very well. That's terrific. That's really great, Emily Ann. That's wonderful. And, you know, this is, it just gets richer and deeper. Like I said, the more emotionally naked you get, if you have the right partner and somebody who really loves and accepts you for who you are, the more you do it, the better it gets. So it's pretty amazing. So when you get emotionally naked with another person, let's talk about that. How do you do that with somebody that you're just getting to know? How do you start to get emotionally naked? Emily Ann says, I love who I am and recognize my faults and am willing to continue to grow. Well, that's one of the keys, honey, to being able to have successful relationships. Because if you are willing to recognize your faults, or if you're willing to allow your partner to reflect back to you where you might be able to grow, and you're open to that, then it allows you to be able to be in the moment and open up and just see that kind of feedback as a positive thing, right? So that you can grow and you won't take it personally. Cindy says she's had it and she loves it, but they are just friends now. So you're just friends now with this person that you had this with, Cindy. Well, it's lovely that you could still maintain the friendship, right? That's beautiful. That's really lovely that you could do that. So let's talk a little bit. We've got about 15 more minutes here. Let's talk a little bit about how do you get emotionally naked? What does that look like? So being emotionally naked doesn't mean that you just go on a date and just tell somebody everything, all your deep, dark secrets, because you want to see what he'll say or what he'll do, you know, like a disclaimer. You don't want to do that. There's certain things that in the very beginning of a relationship, it may not be wise to share, right? You don't want to just say everything because this person has no context for any of it. He has no idea of who you are. He has no idea, he has a very narrow slice of this picture, right? So you don't want to go in there and just blast somebody with my divorce and this and that, and I've been married 2 times, and this one cheated, and that one did this, and my son is in rehab. And you don't want to do that. That's not what getting emotionally naked is all about. It is extremely important that you don't share certain things right out of the starting gate, because this man sitting across from you doesn't have enough information about you to see the whole picture. He's only seeing a very little part of you each time you go on a date. So you're not withholding information. It's not like you're withholding your deepest, darkest secrets, but he needs to have some context for who you are, for the kind of woman you are. He has to have had an opportunity to develop some feelings for you. So you don't just want to blast him and say, I have this and this happened and that happened and whatever. So getting emotionally naked is about revealing a little bit over time. Yes, my marriage was challenging, and you know what? I stayed way too long, and I probably should have left sooner. I'd love to tell you more about that as we get to know each other. Do you see that? I'd love to tell you more as we get to know each other. You don't have to give him the whole shebang right there. And he may reveal a little bit about himself. He may say to you, my marriage was difficult too, and I probably could have been a better husband. I realize in retrospect, my wife was always trying to connect with me, but I wasn't there for her, and I regret it. And we grew apart. I'd love to tell you more about my story too, as we get to know each other. So you don't have to tell the whole thing. You can put some of it out there and just be with that, right? See how he receives it. And the next time you may share a little bit more. You may say, I realized in retrospect that my ex-husband was a pathological liar, and I wish I had put the pieces together sooner. So you're going to share. You're going to share a little bit and a little bit and a little bit, but you're not going to tell him everything. On our 5th date, my future husband said, he said, let's sit down in front of the fire. And we already had really bonded. We had a very special bond, but it was only our 5th date. I had met him and then gone away for 3 weeks. And then the day I got back, he invited me out. And so there had been 3 weeks in between our first date and our second date. And then but we really were growing on each other, and he knew that. And so he said, there's some things I want to tell you because I really like you. And if these would be deal breakers, I think that you should know. And so he told me, he had some health conditions, and there was some things from his divorce that he wanted me to know. And it was the sweetest thing in the world. It was the sweetest thing in the world that this beautiful man sat down, and I felt how much he cared about me. He wasn't doing this just for himself. He was really concerned that if these were deal breakers, he didn't want me to get further involved. He has some autoimmune conditions that can be kind of painful for him. And so sometimes he has some days where he's just really in a lot of pain. So he wanted me to know that because he knew it would affect our relationship going forward. So Amal says, I never found Mr. Right, and I don't know, is it me or them? Amal, even if it is them, even if you are attracting or attracted to the wrong men, it's still the choices you're making. So you're saying yes to the wrong men and no to the right ones. That's really what's going on here. So you have to decide, right? You have to start to look at you. This is where working with me comes in very handy, because I start to help you look at attachment and how you pick a partner and what to look for in a partner. We start to work on all of that, and we start to put the pieces of the puzzle together. So yes, there are things that you're doing wrong because you're the common denominator in that equation. And the good news about that is not to blame yourself, but to say, wow, if I'm doing things wrong, then that means that I can change this. And you can. You can have a phenomenal relationship if you really want to, but you need to do the work, and you've got to start to look at what you're doing wrong and the choices you're making, and the things that you may be doing to turn off men. I don't know enough about your history, but maybe you're turning off good men, maybe you need to learn how to talk to men, open up your heart to them. So there's a lot that you can learn and do to change this picture so that you don't wind up alone. Shanice says, sharing my passions and explaining why they light me up, asking good questions that take the conversation a bit deeper, and answering questions in thoughtful ways. That's really beautiful. Mm-hmm. Yep, that's a good way to approach a date, Shanice. Emily Ann said, emotionally naked doesn't mean verbal vomit. There is Emily being her true, authentic self and just putting it out there. So beautiful, Emily Ann. I couldn't have said it more authentically or better myself. Yes. Does anybody have questions about getting emotionally naked with a man? How to do it, what to say, what not to say? Anybody have questions? I'm happy to give you some perspective or talk about things. You never want to keep getting emotionally naked if you're sharing personal things about yourself and opening up, and the man that you're with is not matching you. So if he just keeps asking you question after question and doesn't open up to you, but you're opening up with him, not good. So be careful, because you just want to be careful, because I had a client once and she said, Lisa, I was on this date and it was the most uncomfortable date I've ever been on. And she said, this man just kept asking me question after question after question, and really like probing questions about her life and all. And she said, I opened up and shared, but then he didn't, when I started asking him questions, he kept turning it back to me. And she said, I realized that I had gotten emotionally naked and I'm standing there completely naked, and he hadn't exposed anything about himself, nothing. So Marina says, tell us what to say and not to say, please. Oh, okay. Well, you don't want to tell somebody your deepest, darkest secrets, right? You don't want to open, and I'm talking about, Marina, in the very beginning when you're first getting to know someone. So you don't want to talk about that you have herpes, or, we even had a woman who has a special needs child, and she was really concerned. Should she say it right up front? Should she not? And, I know that that is a big thing, and it will be a deal breaker for a lot of people. But a guy wouldn't even know if she was worth dating at all. He couldn't even give her a chance. If she put that up front and center in her profile, or if she put it, said that on a first date, most guys are just going to go, you know what? No. But if he went on some dates, a handful of dates with her, he would have an opportunity to get to know her and see how sweet she is and what a great mother she is. Oh my God, she takes care of this child and she's so devoted, and she's a wonderful, wonderful person. She's sweet as can be. But a man wouldn't even have taken the time to get to know any of that. And he wouldn't have enough information to make a really good choice. So he would just bail. You may have, I don't know, you may have 4 or 5 kids and you're worried, is a man going to date me with that many kids? If you tell somebody right out of the starting gate, yeah, I got 4 kids, he doesn't have enough data to know or know you well enough to know if he really likes you. And so it'll probably be something that he'll bail. And a lot of us feel like we want to go on dates and just tell, all of our stuff to the guy so that if he is going to bail, we want him to do it sooner than later. But then it's kind of a catch-22, because if you do that, then you shoot yourself in the foot because he never gets a chance to know you. So what do you say on a first date? Again, you open up and you share a little bit. You talk, you don't go into the weeds when you're talking about a divorce or your last relationship that didn't work out, or a child that is struggling. You may mention that you have a child who's struggling. You may say, yeah, one of my children is really having a hard time, and leave it at that. And then wait, and maybe the next time you'll talk about it a little more. His dad was a narcissist and he doesn't want anything to do with him. And, it's been really hard on him. He's in therapy. I wanted to get him into therapy. So you would talk about it a little more, but not all the weeds, all the drama. Sometimes we start telling a story and then we just can't stop. And you want to take a deep breath and not, and just share enough. Just enough. I want to share one other aspect of being emotionally naked. And this is really the deepest, there's a different aspects. So there's the things that we're ashamed of, from our past that we've done that we feel people might judge us for. So that's one thing. That's one aspect of getting emotionally naked. And then the other aspect of getting emotionally naked is saying exposing our feelings. Exposing our feelings. So I love you. I love spending time with you. I really feel like I'm developing affection for you. I sometimes think about, what it would be like to wake up next to you. Do you see that? Those are the most vulnerable things. I'm wondering what you think about me, what you think about how our dates are going. So do you see that? Those are the most vulnerable things of all to share. You're waiting to hear, I love you. I think you're amazing. I could see myself growing old with you, right? So those are the kinds of things that are really the most vulnerable when it comes to dating. Those are the things we're most afraid of. All right, everybody. This has been Emotionally Naked Dating, or Dating Without... This has been a pleasure. I've enjoyed talking with all of you. I do 3 Facebook Lives a week. I do one on Mondays. It's called Lunch with Lisa. That's at noon Mountain Time. I do this one on Tuesdays. This is called Live with Lisa, and this is from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. Mountain Time. And then my favorite Facebook Live of all is the one I do on Sundays with my husband, Benjamin, and that is called Getting Inside the Right Male Mind. And that one is at 10 a.m. Mountain Time on Sunday. Please join us for that. You will hear my husband just say the most beautiful things that you would wish that every man would open up about. Benjamin will talk about those things, and he really has the most beautiful mind. So please tune in. You can go to Lisa Shield Dating and Relationships. That's my business page. If you like the page, you can see the links for those lives posted every week on that page. All right, everybody, lots of love. Go out and get emotionally naked. Can't hurt anything, right? Just see, open up, share yourself with yourself, right? Just be real and don't be afraid to learn and grow. Let other people not like you. That's okay, because you know what? There's always going to be people that don't like you. I watch that little eye where they have the number there. People are coming and going. It goes up to 30, it goes down to 10, you know? So you can't be afraid of that stuff. Put yourself out there. Figure out what works and what doesn't work. Throw mud against the wall until you start getting the reactions and the responses from people that you really want. But don't be afraid. Get emotionally naked with yourself. And once you're really comfortable with that, you can do it with anyone, including a man that you are wildly attracted to. All right, everybody, have a great evening. Lots of love. And I will see you all next week.